Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about Genmab. Genmab is a stock I had covered 3 weeks ago, and I liked it a lot because it was a high growth stock with a long-term vision, with high growth, with recurring revenue in a sector that I find interesting, in a sector of disruption, which is cancer treatments, specifically that what they work on. Genmab, as you can see, the logo includes this little Y-shaped thing right here. That's called an antibody. What they work on is antibody treatment for cancers, right? And briefly, how does this work? Well, you are manufacturing antibodies. You're making your own antibodies, and the antibodies, they stick to the cell. And of course, the cancer cell is a cell that is going haywire. It's a cell that is spreading its toxic instructions to other cells in your body. And the key is that these antibody cures, these antibody treatments, what they do is they stick to the cancerous cells, and they give instructions to these cells to commit suicide, i.e. to engage in apoptosis. This is one of the main ways they do it. They stick to the cell and they signal to the cell, hey, time to die, and they mimic an instruction that tells the cell to commit suicide and kill itself. They also can be used in the form of hexamers, in the form of different ways to put them together, and they can be used in order to increase the effectiveness of chemo-type medication and other forms of treatment. So it's one of the novel ways to treat cancer. One of the CEO's grand battles of Genmab, their CEO wants to, quote unquote, turn cancer into a chronic disease, and that's actually perhaps the state of the art, or that's where the field is headed. These antibody treatments, they seem to be kind of the edge of cancer treatments. So I find this quite fascinating. It's an area of medicine that we don't focus on much. It's different from DNA. DNA is what gets the lion's share of a discussion. DNA editing, mRNA treatments, all of that gets the lion's share of a discussion. There's another little revolution brewing called antibody treatments, and that's why they excel at that. They absolutely excel at that. So what is the guidance? They've updated the lower end of the guidance. As you know, on this channel, I am a growth snob. I care about growth. I don't invest in companies that don't have revenue. I don't invest in companies that don't make at the least a bare minimum profit so that they don't go bankrupt. And I want to invest in a company whose top line grows. Why do I want to do that? Because, as a reminder, the US dollar is getting devalued at 15% a year. If I own an investment that does not grow at least at 15% a year, I am drowning. 30% is my bare minimum that I look at. Genmab does that. They've increased their guidance. They are now saying that they're going to achieve roughly 30% revenue growth for the current year. Also noteworthy to say that, as you can see, most of their revenues are royalty revenues. They have some milestone revenue, which is the top. You see the 1,182. This is in Danish kronas, by the way. So you can see they have a part of a revenue which are one-time things from milestone and reimbursement of their co-developed drugs, but the bulk of the revenue comes from recurring revenues in the form of royalty fees. And royalty fees have this beautiful thing that they are literally almost pure profit. That's what they are. Now in 2024, right, the year we're in, they are working on a lot of new drugs. They're working on their pipeline. And so not only are they expanding their current products, I'm not going to pronounce those, but those two, they're executing and they're expanding on these launches. That's the priority to increase the growth, and you sure enough can see some of that growth in sales being discussed in the quarter. But they are also working on future treatments. One of them is called acasulimab. Yeah, I shouldn't read that. And that means when they have Gen 1042, that means they haven't named the drug just yet. But eventually they will name it. Again, very specific industry. But what they need to do is to advance in their trials. They're also investing in their people. and they're becoming an innovation powerhouse. Well, what does that really mean? Well, it's marketing. No, but at the end of the day, they have their grand objective. Their grand objective is the knock your socks off objective, as the way they call it. And this includes many of these next generation treatments, such as acasunlimab, just as Tepezza, Rybrezent, Darzalex. These were past products, and they're working on new products like Rina-S, Epinkly. Again, I don't pretend to be an expert. This is their updates from their latest call, the last quarter at slightly different. They've made some advancements. Anyways, the sector is meaningful. This is what I had in my last slide. The sector you're investing in, they want to transform how cancer is treated. And sure enough, that is a promise that I think should warrant a much higher valuation than what this company does. And this is not like multifamily property investing, or this is not an airline. This is kind of a much more meaningful type of business in the case of Genmab. Anyways, let's look at the valuation of Genmab, because this is what I care about this channel. Many of you pointed out in my last comment section, well, what do you mean antibody therapies? There's a lot of companies focusing on antibody therapies. Well, that's true, but they tend to be big, bloated, old world pharma companies, and they don't tend to specialize only in antibody therapies. Genmab only specializes in that, only does that. They're razor focused on this. They're sharply focused on this. That's point number one. There's plenty of stocks that are razor focused on a lot of stuff. No, the reason why this company came into my screener is because in my systematic way to evaluate stock, this stock is dirt cheap. Enterprise value over gross profit over growth. This is my question. How much am I paying for each percentage point of forward growth? In the case of Genmab, I am paying a 0.15. It is dirt cheap. It is as cheap as Transmedics. Transmedics comes with its own overhang right now. The reason why Transmedics is cheap right now is because there are some doubts as to how much market share they are gaining in the transplants business. Genmab just raised their outlook. The doubts are smaller, at least for the existing products. These existing products fund the future. They fund the future. It's a profitable company. Their EBITDA margin is 34%. When I add the EBITDA margin to the forward growth, and I'm assuming 30%, I'm thinking they will keep doing that. That's a 64, rule of 64, so more than 1.5 times rule of 40, which is the bare minimum of what I look for. They have a lot of cash on the balance sheet, 2.5 billion of cash on the balance sheet versus only 146 million of debt. So this is a company whose enterprise value is significantly lower than the market value because of that cash on the balance sheet. And their gross margin is outstanding because it's 97%. Now, of course, they are beginning to commercialize products on their own. So that gross margin should drop a little bit. But nonetheless, right now, the numbers are among the best numbers I can find in a healthcare stock that actually innovates on the drug side, right? HIMSS is still slightly cheaper than a Genmab, but HIMSS does not really innovate on new drugs. Like, they don't develop new drugs. They innovate on form factor, they create new ways to deliver the drug, but they don't actually create the new molecules, the new compounds. Well, in the case of Genmab, they are creating antibody therapies. I find the stock cheap. I am currently adding to the stock regularly, and you get my updates on Patreon, and you know that you can see that. This video, I will likely publish it over the weekend, but right now I'm recording this video on November 7, 2024, but I'm away this weekend, so I want to have some pre-made videos from the channel. So take that in with a grain of salt. If it's $25 right now, or if it's $22, you can adjust my valuation right there, or you can just look it up on my Patreon. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. This was just entertainment, not financial advice ever on this channel. Please like, please subscribe. Have a wonderful day.